Hey y'all, I'm Catherine Greenberg. It's great to be back. I'm thrilled to be here. And today we're going to talk about shoulding on yourself. We do it all the time. We don't even always realize it. We do it. We hear other people do it. Let's talk about it. Okay, the word should. When you break it down, the word should, it's totally disagreeing with reality. It's sort of the opposite of what actually is. So it might be what we wish, what we want, what we desire, how we think something should be, but that doesn't make it so. So we end up fighting reality as it is. And the goal is always, as much as we can, to work with what is, not what we wish were. So what happens is, as you should on yourself, you grow a lack of self-acceptance rather than self-encouragement, which is, again, the opposite of what we really want to do in this incredible, really hard life. So we spend a lot of time telling ourselves what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. And what happens is our brain hears that. It takes all of that information in and internalizes it. So what happens is when you tell yourself or someone else that they should be doing something, it's reinforcing the idea that we're not doing it. Right? I should really work out more. ... But I don't. I should really fill in the blank. ... But I'm not. So there's a lot of unspoken follows to things that begin with I should or I shouldn't. So over time, as we grow and change and evolve, which we will every day, and sometimes it's really uncomfortable, but that's where all the beauty is in the discomfort, because on the other side of that is all of our growth. But when you are telling yourself and other people that we or they should be doing something, you're really reinforcing the negative. And this is true even when you're well-intentioned and well-meaning, which we mostly are. We are doing the best we can with what we have at this moment in time. And our intentions are usually beautiful and pure for the most part. And it's okay if they're not all the time too. So when you say that things should be different, which we do a lot of, and life is hard right now, and the world events are challenging and hard to process and hard to swallow and hard to hear. What happens is you're saying that a consequence that is caused should somehow not happen. And by saying this, that would mean that you would have to change all of the rules of the entire world. So, for example, one of my wishes is that people would have more empathy for one another. And so someone might say, well, why? And I would say, because that would make the world a better place. And someone would say, well, why? Well, because the world would be softer and people would be kinder to each other and there'd be more understanding and compassion, less violence, etc., etc. And the more whys that come into that dialogue, ultimately, my answer is going to be because I want it that way. So my wish and what I want is amazing and well-intentioned and well-meaning and would be absolutely amazing, but it's still me putting my wish on reality. And that doesn't make it so. And so when our wishes become a demand on reality, you're still taking that preference and trying to turn it into a command. And that's more lack of self-acceptance, lack of self-encouragement, and more fighting with reality. And so it would be amazing if the world worked like that, but it doesn't. And we're responsible for ourselves only. So we can only work with what we have, not what we wish we had. So that doesn't mean we can't change. We can totally change reality, right? We can change reality. We can change ourselves. We can change our environment, our surroundings, our people, whatever you want. And to do that, you gotta change the cause. So for example, I have this little guy who I love so much, but he's a little rascally and he's a little naughty because he's an 8-month-old puppy. Thank you very much. Thank you. I love you too very much. And puppies have to be trained. They don't know that it's not okay to go to the bathroom in the house or on the rug or anywhere else. He loves the shower. I don't know why. So when you begin training them, you take them out every hour, every half hour, every time they eat. You see when they start to spin around, you pick them up and you go outside. And ultimately, they start to understand that, oh, if I have to go to the bathroom, I got to go outside. We change the cause to change the reality. I hope that makes sense. So, that being said, I've told you a lot about what not to do. Let's talk about some alternatives to shitting on yourself. So your brain really doesn't understand negatives. It doesn't like them. It really can't process them. So if I tell you not to think about something, don't think about a purple unicorn with a sparkly crown. Don't think about it. That's pretty much all you're going to think about because your brain can't process this. And I know I've talked about this before, but it's very similar to how shitting works. The idea is to focus on whatever the benefit might be, right? So instead of starting your thought or your sentence with, I should be, you start to think about why you want to do that, right? Whatever it is, going to the gym, eating differently, taking more walks, pick it. Pick whatever works for you. And so when I should meditate more, that's one of the ones for me, because I know how much it helps me because I'm very high energy and I struggle with ADD and I struggle with anxiety. And so for me, having that grounding technique is incredibly helpful. So instead of saying, I really should meditate more, well, when I meditate every day, I feel much more able to handle the realities of daily living and my activities of daily living and all the stressors that will come with life. It ain't perfect, but it helps a ton. And so it's also important to focus on whatever fits your values. We all have values that we try to live by, that we try to teach our kids, that we spend time with people who have similar values, and we try to understand people who have different values. That's where empathy comes in. We're not all going to share values, but that doesn't mean we don't like the people who don't have our same values. But we tend to do activities that fit our value system, right? So for me, punctuality is important. It's important for me to show up on time, and it's important for how I feel that I live with integrity. So if you're someone who struggles with punctuality and you tend to be late a lot, I shouldn't be late. Oh my God, why can't I ever be on time? I should always be on time and I don't know it. Oh, okay, I get that. Here's how you try and reframe that. It's important to reframe it so it's aligned with your values. The perspective needs to come from what works for you. Everybody's going to have an opinion and everybody's going to have something they think. That's fine. Go back to yourself. Reach inside, get really curious, and listen. We really don't listen to what our body is telling us, to what our heart is telling us, to what our soul and spirit are telling us. When you lean in and get curious and listen, you will absolutely hear the answer. Work on being still. It's very hard and incredibly rewarding. So it's important for me to be on time. I choose to live with integrity, and I want to do what I say I'm going to do when I say I'm going to do it, right? I want to respect others' time. I want to live on a schedule and a routine that's really helpful for me, etc., etc. Choose your words, choose your values, choose your language, all of that, and see what happens. This is where we come back to acceptance and awareness. Being aware of something can have the same effect as changing it. And when you accept something just the way it is, life will shift. If you can accept each moment exactly as it is without trying to change it, as if you had planned it, as if you had asked for it, the world will soften. The hardest thing, at least for me, is when this comes up with unwanted emotions, right? Anger, sadness, jealousy, fear, rage, all of those sort of emotions we are taught to push down or ignore. And what happens is it's like a pot that overflows. At some point, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. They will. Emotions are little narcissists. They love themselves. So they will come keep knocking until you acknowledge them. And so if you're telling yourself, I shouldn't feel this way, maybe because you were brought up in a house where anger was not permitted, or emotions were not permitted, or crying was not permitted, or you were shamed because you were told these things. You're an adult now with adult judgment and adult perspective. And so when you're telling your system, I shouldn't feel angry, I shouldn't feel jealous, I shouldn't feel envious, I shouldn't be afraid of this, I shouldn't feel nervous about this. Well, what you resist persists. And so if you shift that focus into accepting exactly how you feel, into exactly whatever experience you're having, to whatever thoughts you're having, that's when you're going to be able to release them. I do feel sad, and that's okay. I don't feel sad. I don't want to feel sad. That's ridiculous. And we apologize. We apologize for our feelings. We apologize for crying. We apologize for feeling tired. What the heck? We've got this definition of strength totally backwards. Feel how you feel. However you feel is valid. If you are hurt, you are hurt. It is not up to anybody else to tell you whether or not your pain is valid. How you feel is how you feel. And that's really the end of that story. So remember, without acceptance, there's no change. Until you accept something exactly the way it is, it's nearly impossible to shift it, to change it, to learn to evolve with it. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Everything in the universe is exactly the next step. Lean into what is, not what you wish were. Once again, I'm Catherine Greenberg, and the pleasure was all yours. No, just kidding. It was really all mine to be here. I love what I do. I'm really passionate about what I do, and I'm grateful to be on this side of things because I know what it feels like when your heart is breaking and your heart is heavy and you really can't breathe and you just wonder why you're even in this life anymore. And if you need a reminder, I'm it. That we need you here and we need you to stay here because you're worth this life. You were born worthy. I am a certified life coach here in Sarasota, Florida. I work with people who are struggling with addiction and trauma, which pretty much go hand in hand very often. If you'd like to hear more, I'm on social media everywhere. And my website is catherinegreenberg.com. So I'm wishing you the most glorious day you can possibly have. Happiness is an inside job. Contentment is an inside job. So choose your path. And if you need support, we are absolutely here. And remember, leave some space for grace.